and welcome back to another episode of the Adam MacDonald View from Seagull Central. Thank you so much for joining me today on what is an absolutely unbelievable result for Brighton. Brighton beat Man United in the literal last minute. Was it like the 96th minute or something against Man United? Unbelievable. So good. So much to talk about today. Such a good result. And it means Fabian Hurzeler's first game at the Amex, his first home game in the Premier League, Brighton's first home game of the 24-25 season begins with a win, and we make it back-to-back wins in the Premier League. Unbelievable. What a buzz. The fact, I think winning against United, we've done it plenty of times over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so. But when it comes like that, we had it 2023, I think, that last minute penalty from McAllister. We've had it before in the last minute. Today was really special because of the nature of it, with it being Fabian's first game at the Amex, so many new players, the start of kind of a new era for Brighton, a lot of question marks around how this side's going to be looking over the next few months and the next few years, and the investment that's gone in, and how things will be different. And oh my God, what a way to begin. So many unbelievable talking points, so many good players, so many good bits of play throughout the game, and so much to talk about. Joao Pedro in the last minute with an unbelievable header in acres of space, shocking defending from Man United, and puts us ahead against them in a game which really, at the end of the day, I think it would have been one which either team could have won. I think you saw it in that last 10, 20 minutes. Either team definitely could have gone and won that game. But equally, it was probably, a game where it should have been a draw, quite an evenly balanced game in perspective. But we did what we had to do, and we went and got that win. And I think you kind of had a feeling with Brighton. I don't know whether you did when you were watching it, but, as those last moments were going in, and we obviously got a bit lucky with offside goals and stuff, but I kind of had a feeling as we brought those subs on with, I think it was like the 87th minute or so, it felt like we were just going to do something special. As Adingra came on and Rutter came on, I kind of thought, we're going for it. And I feel like the game's not over, and you could tell it was all to play for in that last 5-10 minutes or so. And we just made the absolute most of it. Capitalising on our record against United, which has been so good in recent years, and we've done it again. I want to get into so much here, but as always, obviously, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for listening, watching, however you get involved. Please, if you've watched the game today, if you've loved it, if you're enjoying this video so far, please drop me a subscription, drop a comment, drop a like. It means so much to me. Tell me, were you at the game today? What did you think? Who were the standout performers? Please get involved. As always, it really helps the channel, and I really appreciate it. So let's get into it. One change from the team in the first game against Everton away at Goodison, and Weaver was out of the side. Now, this was due to a minor injury, apparently some minor muscular injury, and Hurzeler said pre-game he expects Weaver to be back in the next couple of days, and he'll probably be fit for next weekend, if not Crawley. So that's good. But I think it's one of those ones where you just don't involve them if you can. We've got a decent level of depth at the moment, and I think, it kind of just preserves that injury, makes it, nothing worse. You don't want to push him. But Billy Gilmour came in for Mats Weaver, which I thought was really interesting. Obviously, so much talk at the moment. You'll have thought it too, around Billy Gilmour and his future. Some reports, Brian Owen and the Argus, is suggesting that his intel from Italy, he's been told that the expectation is that Gilmour's still going to have a medical at 9:30 a.m. on Monday morning ahead of that move to Napoli. There's been so much talk on social media about Gilmour not suiting Fabian Hurzeler's sister. I'm not sure I really buy that personally, but we saw against United, he absolutely looks like a player who can thrive under this system. But he came in for Mats Weaver, which I think was quite surprising, just because you've got someone on the bench like Carlos Baleba, who's looked so bright in pre-season. We saw it in the last 15 minutes against United, where he was really, really physical, dynamic, was able to drive us up the pitch, do so many positive things for us in midfield. And I wonder why that profile isn't being played in midfield when someone like Mats Weaver can't play. James Milner kept his place in midfield, and it was him alongside Billy Gilmour, which I think on paper you might have thought was quite a suspect midfield. I think at times last season when we had to rely on those two obviously quality players, but with the ability to get overrun. And I think if you were a United fan looking at that midfield, you'd have probably fancied your chances with players like Mason Mount in there, Casemiro, Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno Fernandes. You'd think you'd be able to play through that quite well, but I think the way that Milner plays in this Hurzeler side is so important, and Hurzeler bloody loves it. That ability to press so well, lead from midfield, lead the press in midfield, get stuck in. He's still so physical at the age of 38, and it's brilliant. So yeah, Billy Gilmour coming in that midfield too with James Milner was the only change. It was still Minteh on the right, who came back in after the concussion against Everton. Mitoma on the left, Welbeck up front with Joao Pedro in behind, and then the back four, Hinshelwood on the left, Veltman on the right. And then JP and Lewis Dunk in the middle was stealing goal. So, yeah, not much change there for us. And I think I would have liked to maybe see Baleba in midfield, but, you really can't knock Billy Gilmour, as we'll come on to. He was absolutely brilliant. So in that first 5-minute period, some of the notes I've written down here is that basically we didn't have loads of control. In that first 25 minutes, 20 minutes or so, it was very similar to how we played against Everton, where we were letting them have a lot of the ball. They were getting in behind us quite a lot, lumping the ball just in behind, and we were kind of being challenged a little bit. I thought their press was actually really, really good, Man United. Pressing players like Lewis Dunk on the ball really well. Veltman, Jack Hinshelwood were getting pressed, and it was actually quite successful. They won the ball back off us in midfield quite a few times. They caused some hairy moments, which ultimately, we actually were able to get through quite easily. But it kind of took us into a position where we were... I remember thinking, I would take a draw here. And I think that's because of the impact that press was having. We were trying to play out, but we were... in the end, we were kind of lumping it a lot of the time. Jason Steele was lumping it up the field. So Lewis Dunk just playing those long balls, and I think we didn't have a lot of control. I've written here, the press was really high, not loads of control. I would have taken a draw. And we were having to deal with lots of 1v1 situations, particularly in defence. So, for example, I've written down that Joel Veltman was fantastic against Marcus Rashford for that first kind of 60, 70 minutes that Rashford was on the pitch. And we saw that throughout the game. Joel Veltman, absolutely excellent in defence, particularly in those 1v1 battles. I think we saw it against, was it Garnacho in the second half, where he was able to just stand up these players and be so impressive against them. That's something we've seen in Joel Veltman's game over the last 3-4 years with him. You think back to the famous Wilfred Zaha moments as well, Jack Grealish as well. I remember he pocketed him in some games. Joel Veltman in these big games has a real ability to stand up his man and really win those 1v1 duels. And we saw that, whilst in that first half where we were being pressed quite a lot and we were under the cosh for that first 15, 20 minutes or so, he really stood up. And we saw it obviously later in the game when United played quite a lot on the counter-attack. His winning of the duels was brilliant. But in that first, 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, I thought Gilmour was really, really good in the midfield. And obviously, he continued to be fantastic, playing throughout the kind of 80, 85 minutes that he was on the pitch. But I thought the way that he was able to play the ball through the lines for us and progress really nicely for us, not just kind of in his passing and driving up the field, but actually the way he was able to move his feet around, weave in and out of men and actually push us up the field. And I think that's something that Baleba, we've seen him be really successful at doing. And maybe Gilmour, a bit more of a static midfielder who'd sprayed the ball a bit more. But either way, I thought Gilmour just got really stuck in, was winning duels and was getting up the field. And I think it will be a shame if we do lose him. I think it would be really shocking if he is a player who we're going to see moved on in the next few weeks, the next week or so left of the window, and whether he will have this medical on Monday morning. You'd be surprised, just considering why would Fabian Hurzeler put him in for this game against Man United if he knows that he's going to be potentially going off in the next couple of days. You'd think you just, you put him on the bench, or you just not even include him in the squad. The fact he's starting, I think, suggests he does have a future. And that performance against Man United, I think, shows that he really does have a future. And we saw the best of Billy Gilmour last season. I think back to some of those Europa League games where he really took the midfield by the scruff of the neck, alongside players like Pascal Gross and obviously James Milner, Jack Hinshelwood too. But we saw that again today, and whether there's been doubts around his physicality, whether there's been doubts around his player profile, I think we saw against Man United that really, really brilliant aspect that he has to win the ball back for us, get physically stuck in, but also progress the ball up the field. And I think at times when we were really playing into our wingers in that second half and towards the last 10, 15 minutes or so, that directness with the ball, being able to immediately get the ball out wide, I think was so useful for us. and I think he really deserves his praise. So then we were having to ride the wave of kind of United attacks, and I think we ended up being able to find that space a little bit more as the half opened up. We probably got to about 20 minutes or so. We managed to just find that bit of space and get those few attacks going, and that was where the first goal came from. Joao Pedro on the right hand side putting in a fantastic ball. And I'll be honest, at this point the attacks weren't brilliantly built up. It's not like they were beautifully passed around the goal and kind of built up amazingly on a counter-attack or something like we might have seen in the past. This felt a little bit more like we were kind of soaking up a bit of pressure, getting out, and then kind of doing what we can, be that kind of on the break or kind of with a kind of cross into the box or something like that, where it's not as technically kind of minded and built and crafted. So we saw on the right-hand side, Joao Pedro kind of getting into a bit of space outside of the box, puts a lovely ball into the box. You've got Mitoma in there, we've got Danny Welbeck in there, and it goes all the way through. It goes past the keeper and out onto the left-hand side. Kaoru Mitoma with a fantastic ball back into the box, low and across the face of goal to essentially a space where nobody was in. The Man United defenders were ball watching. There was a big bit of space behind them, and suddenly Danny Welbeck, who's in that space but not quite ready in that space, has to really stretch a foot out, and he gets on the end of it. It was fantastic striker's instinct. It's the kind of thing that I think we've seen with Danny Welbeck more and more this last few years. Of course he's got that ability to hold up the ball. Of course he's got that instinct, but we're seeing more of that kind of that poacher's element to us, I think, which we didn't maybe see in the first few years. I think we saw a bit more of the kind of general all-round hold-up play. We didn't see the kind of prolific goal-scoring nature of him. We saw a player who might pass the ball a bit more, build up the play a little bit more. But here we saw a player who is staying like a fox in the middle of the box and is pouncing on anything that's kind of coming his way. And I think it was a really, I think it wasn't the most amazingly crafted goal, but what it was a goal which showed Danny Welbeck's striker's instinct. And I think at the time, it was a pretty undeserved goal, if we're being completely honest about it. I think all the momentum was with Man United. We'd begun to kind of find our way into the game a bit, but we weren't exactly creating chances galore, and we weren't peppering their box like they were for us and pressing us. We weren't getting the opportunity to do that. The ball got out to minteh a few times, but he was kind of struggling to kind of take players on, particularly in that first half a little bit. And I think it wasn't a lucky moment, but it was against the run of play. And whilst it ultimately ended up being quite a nice goal and great instinct from everyone involved, I think it wasn't something we massively deserved. Then quite shortly afterwards, Rashford down the other end does score a goal, an offside goal, one of 2 or 3 offside goals that were scored in this game. The ball comes into the box on the right-hand side. Rashford gets to the end of it, and Jason Steele makes an absolutely fantastic save. I think Jason Steele in this game was absolutely brilliant. He did what he had to do. His distribution was brilliant, and the saves he made, he only has to make kind of 2 or 3, were fantastic. He came out of his box really well, commanded his area with corners and free kicks. I thought he really deserved credit because there's been a lot of talk around him and his future. I know Southampton have been interested in him. Apparently Arsenal have been interested in him too as a number 2. But he's a player who we've needed in these first few weeks with Bart Verbruggen being out and Carl Rushworth not being deemed ready yet. And he's shown he's completely up to the task. Now, this goal did end up going in from Rashford, but Steele made an absolutely wonder save with his left hand out of nowhere. Kind of just his hand appeared. It was brilliant. I think he really deserved a word on that. So generally in that first half, we go in 1-0 up, and I think the goal obviously made us have a bit more of a foothold in the game. We were able to then, build on that position and build that momentum a little bit more. But up to that point, United, let's be real, I think United looked pretty impressive. I thought the way they were pressing was quite impressive. I thought the way that they were knocking the ball through our midfield was pretty good. I think players like Gilmour and Milner in that midfield, whilst looking good on the ball, I think were struggling a little bit off the ball. I think our wingers weren't really getting played into the game at all. I think every time they got the ball, their fullbacks were doing really well against them. minteh was making poor decisions. I think it wasn't looking brilliant, and I think obviously after that goal comes, the game opens up a bit more. United sat deeper a bit and we had a bit more of possession to play with, and we created a couple of nice chances. But ultimately we weren't massively impressive, and I think that's something that I'm quite impressed by with a Brighton side, and generally just whenever I watch kind of my side be like this, and I'm hoping this is a sign of what hurzeler can bring to Brighton, is a bit more of that pragmatism, which I think we maybe lacked under De Zerbi, which is being able to see through those difficult moments. I almost think in that first 20-25 minute period, if we were under De Zerbi, still maybe this is unfair, but I feel like maybe we would have conceded in that moment. I think our ability to weather storms and get through it and maybe get a goal when we maybe don't completely deserve it, is something that we, is a real skill as a side, and being able to kind of stay in games when we're not playing too well. We need to be applauded for that, because essentially that's how we got through that first half and ended up being able to kind of get into that second half and play the way we wanted to, and ended up playing quite well and getting a goal, which in the end, we did deserve. I think the game could have been a draw, but we did deserve that. And then into the second half starts, and I think that's where we saw a change in Brighton's style and the momentum. I think we came out of the blocks absolutely flying. From the free kick, we got pretty much all 5 attackers forward. We were running with the ball. Joao Pedro was taking that ball and literally moving up the pitch individually, driving the team up the pitch with the ball. I thought it was so impressive. And there were a couple of really early chances within the first 2-3 minutes of that first half. Joao Pedro played in Milner for a chance, which ended up getting cleared off the line. Milner kind of essentially in a striker's position, being played in by Joao Pedro, just off the shoulder of the last defender. He's in on his left foot and kind of gets a nice nick on the ball, and it doesn't quite have the power to get over the line, but it's heading for the line, and Man United are able to clear it off the line. But we came out of that second half period really, really taking the game to United, and I think that was good to see, because it ultimately set the tone for that second half. What it basically did was, I think in that first half we were sat off a little bit. We were letting them dictate the play on us a little bit, pressing us quite a lot, and we had our backs against the wall. I think what it meant was United, and I think it's how the game ended up going. It was very back and forth. It was very up and down, and it was very counter-attack. Kind of you get the ball, we get the ball, you get the ball, we get the ball, which made for a really, really thrilling game, an entertaining game, but one where the control was maybe relinquished a little bit, probably after about 55-60 minutes. I think for that first 10-15 minutes after halftime, we had the control in the game. We were getting bodies forward. We were getting loads of bodies forward, actually, and we were holding on to the ball really nicely. Our patterns of play were really impressive, and we had a number of chances. We were all over them. We saw space opening up. Man United became a little bit more ragged and all over the place. That discipline that I think they saw in their press in the first half completely kind of fell to the wayside. I think one thing I will say about Man United is I think you can see a little bit more of that structure now for them. Their press was very organised. I think their defence looked very organised in that first half. But I think in the second half, once the crowd kind of turned against them, once we came out of that first half with the momentum of wanting to take the game to them, you could see it's kind of that typical Man United thing where everything just becomes a bit more hectic and the organisation completely disappears. And I don't know whether that's a managerial thing, whether that's a kind of structure thing, a players thing, but we were able to capitalise on that. And when you've got talismanic players like Joao Pedro, who are able to do what I said a minute ago and, be so pivotal, he looked so up for it, Joao Pedro. He looked like he really wanted to take this game by the scruff of the neck, getting the ball in kind of deep spaces and literally just driving forward with the ball at his feet. When he got the ball in the box, he was running at players. He was taking shots from areas at weird angles. And it's that ability to kind of set the tone of how you play. And I think at the end, when we saw, that goal come in, we had about 5 or 6 players in the box. Joao Pedro was one of them in space with a brilliant finish. But, there were... I think his ability to lead that line and set the tone for Brighton is why he's so important for us. Yes, he's a goal scorer. Yes, he's a penalty taker, but he's also a talisman for us. And I think he's so important alongside someone like Welbeck. Welbeck actually had a really good chance, probably about 10 minutes into the second half. We had a free kick on the left-hand side. I think Hinshelwood might have won it. A ball gets played into the box on the left-hand side, from the left-hand side, and Welbeck, a brilliant header, flicks it on to the right-hand side, the top right-hand corner of the goal, and it comes off the post, the frame of the goal, the top side of the goal. Oh, and it was so close, probably 6 inches away from going in. And we had our chances. Of course, Man United had their chances to kind of get back into the game, and they probably could have won it with their chances. But I think with our build-up play and the chances we were making and the energy that we were exuding in that first 10 minutes, the momentum really shifted. However, against the run of play was really how Man United got their goal. Diallo broke free on the right, he got past Hinshelwood, he then took a shot in on his left foot, and it basically took a massive deflection of Jean-Paul Van Hecke, with Lewis Dunk sliding in behind him as well. They both slid in to basically block the shot, and it bounced off Van Hecke's knee and went into the goal. It was a disappointing moment because I think Brighton were really looking for that second goal, and the momentum had slightly shifted at that point. All that goal basically did was just bring United back into the game and change that momentum a little bit. There was a moment just before that where Minteh had a really good opportunity on the Brighton right hand side. He was in the Brighton box and he just picked the wrong ball. And from that, Man United won the ball back and they went on to score via Amad Diallo. And I think, I think that kind of summed up things a little bit throughout the whole game. I think Brighton were very good in attack. Man United looked pretty decent at times on a counter-attack. But I think we saw in players like Minteh making the wrong decisions, losing the ball for us. The other team was immediately able to just get back into the game and get their chances going. But it was a disappointing goal to concede. We then had to make some changes. The run of the game changed a little bit. And what we saw was Man United get another goal, this time offside, a counter-attack, another counter-attack. They were using their wingers so well. Essentially what was happening was we were, as you'll have remembered, we were having a lot of the ball, trying to create and dictate the possession and the chances in the game. Man United would win the ball, get it out to their two wingers, Amad Diallo, Garnacho or Rashford on the left-hand side. And with flying bodies forward, Xerxes was getting forward, Amad was getting forward, and it was Amad on the right-hand side who got the ball again, got the ball into the box. Amad goes to score it, tap it in, and Joshua Xerxes basically got a leg on it when he shouldn't have, meaning that the goal was offside. It was absolutely offside, and it was a real kind of stroke of luck for Brighton, because I think you couldn't really argue that maybe Man United deserved it. I think at that stage, and from this point onwards really in the game, it probably was a draw that was the deserved result. But I think if either side went on to snatch it, as we obviously did, it wouldn't have been undeserved. And I think if Man United had got that goal through Xerxes, you couldn't really say it was too undeserved. But it was the right decision. It was absolutely offside. But fortunate for Brighton. Brighton then made some changes after this goal, after this offside goal. This is probably the last kind of 10 minutes or so, 18 minutes or so on the clock. Baleba comes on for Milner. And that was, I guess, trying to get a bit more control in the game. And Cisse came on in the game. And then Rutter and Ayeri came on as well. And Adingra came on. So we made quite a few changes in that last 15 minutes, obviously incrementally with those changes. But I don't think any of the main changes came till about 75 minutes or so. But for that last kind of 15, 20 minutes or so, it was really kind of both sides just counter-attacking, getting goals. Brighton having the ball, knocking it about, trying to create some chances, looking pretty decent. Man United countering. Brighton winning the ball back, creating some chances, creating an opening. Man United countering, and we were pretty good at dealing with it and sweeping up the attacks, to be fair to us. I think Billy Gilmour showed his ability on the counter-attack to really block those counters. I thought we saw Veltman's ability to really stop those counters as well. Jean-Paul Van Hecke was brilliant on the right-hand side, blocking those counters as well. It was one of those games where we eventually just got quite lucky to win it. Adingra comes on, Ayeri comes on, Rutter comes on, and we managed to get a little glimpse of Rutter, which was really good. But Adingra on the left-hand side dinks the ball in the air over kind of a little cross into the middle of the goal. Joao Pedro's nowhere to be seen amongst anyone else. Bang, scores it, simple as, and we win it with probably a minute to go on the clock. And in that final 2-3 minutes or so, the energy from that midfield was brilliant. Baleba wanted to win the ball, but Ayeri was getting stuck in so well. Rutter was kind of getting out wide and getting balls into the box and taking men on. We saw that last minute, 2 minutes after the goal went in, we saw, obviously the crowd was up for it. We got that momentum swing back in our favour, but I really liked the way that we kind of, as soon as we lost the ball from the kickoff, we were bang up for winning it back. And a brilliant, brilliant goal. I think, there's so many aspects to this goal we can talk about. I think the Adingra factor is a really interesting one. Mitoma ultimately had quite a quiet game. I think he was up against Mazraoui, the new Man United signing, who was very good. I thought, apparently he was very good in the Fulham game as well, in their opening game of the season last week. But he was really good against Kaoru Mitoma in this game as well. Mitoma on the left-hand side obviously did really well for that first goal, getting the ball into the box, and Danny Welbeck was able to score from that. A fantastic ball back in from him. But he did struggle. I don't think we saw the classic Kaoru Mitoma, who was able to take men on really easily and weave in and out of players so effortlessly. We saw a player who was having to, receive the ball, then pass it back to the midfielder he got it from. Play a bit in that kind of Manchester City style of players that we see from Jack Grealish, etc. Taking the ball on the left-hand side and then popping it back into the midfield. We weren't seeing that energetic dynamism that we usually see from Kaoru Mitoma, where he's creating chances, weaving in and out. And I think the fact that we brought on Simon Adingra in the last 10 minutes or so, I was waiting for that substitution to happen either on the left or right-hand side, because I think the way that Simon Adingra was able to then provide that freshness and ultimately get the ball into the box for the Joao Pedro goal. Who knows, maybe Kaoru Mitoma would have also made that chance as well, but I think it was nice to see that change because Mitoma struggled. He was obviously so brilliant against Everton on the opening day, but maybe it was just to do with the way that United were playing or the players they had specifically. He did struggle a little bit more. Of course, he still had a very good game, and I think he was part of a lot of Brighton attacks, but we didn't find that all of our attacks were necessarily going through him every single time. And I think the challenge, for Mitoma going forward is to produce that consistency. Now, we did see real consistency with him last season before he got injured, but the consistency every single game. But also, I want to see a little bit more end product from Kaoru Mitoma. And I know that might sound a little bit harsh, but I think often he'll get the ball and he'll be so good at getting us up the field or tiring out defenders by weaving in and out, dribbling past them. However, you rarely see him receive the ball, dribble in and out, and then provide an assist from that moment or score a goal from that dribble that he's just done. I'd love to see there be a little bit more output where he can get 10 goals, 10 assists by the end of the season. That would be a really good marker for him. I think that's definitely something he can work to this season. We saw it in the Everton game, how brilliant he was. And he was part of he got an assist for that goal today, for Danny Welbeck's first goal for Brighton. So a really good performance from him, but I think one where I want to see a bit more consistency from him. Elsewhere, we were able to see Julio Enciso come onto the pitch. I thought that was really nice to see him back, obviously getting an injury after being in the Olympics. Jorginho Rutter, our 40 million record signing from Leeds United, came on, played on the right-hand side and did pretty well. He was taking players on. He was using his left foot on that right-hand side to cut in and create some chances. And the team just looked really dynamic. Ultimately, we were trying to win that game in that last 5-10 minutes or so. And we were good value for it. Generally, I don't know what you think, but I think hurzeler's probably thinking, this Premier League lark's pretty easy so far. 2 games, 2 wins, top of the league, and a game against Everton, which in the end was pretty simple, and a game against United, which we performed really well in stages. I think he's been blessed to receive a squad that's been inherited really nicely for him. It's in a really strong position, some top players who are accustomed to a specific style of play, which is really suited to his one. All the tools are there for Fabian Hurzeler to succeed, but what I'm liking from what I'm seeing is that ability that Brighton is showing to be more resilient, to be more pragmatic, to get through tough spells of the games. It's not all about pretty possession for possession's sake. It's about building up through the midfield a bit more, being more direct and getting out to our wingers and getting them to take on players and get balls into the box. We're seeing a different style of that attacking possession-based football which we're used to, and I really welcome that. I think that's a really real positive for Brighton. We've got many games coming up in the next few weeks which are going to test us, and on paper, this start to the season probably wasn't the easiest. However, we've done really well against a difficult Everton side and obviously Man United at home. Going into Arsenal in the next game, you've got to say, with the depth that we have, with the players that we're bringing in, we can make it 3 out of 3, and with players like Enciso coming back, with Rutter being available, with Adingra having such an electric impact off the bench, our squad's in such a healthy place. It's all very well having the players, but having players who are in form and able to come onto a pitch and actually make a difference. We saw it last week with Adingra, where he came on and was needed at half time, was able to score a goal, get an assist, and do really well. So I'm impressed with the performance all round, because we had to show different sides to us. We had to get through that press of the first half. We had to show our knack from set pieces. We had to come out and then show a different style to us in the second half and play the more, kind of conventional Brighton way that we're used to. We had to get our luck a little bit. And of course, all of this might run out and we'll get tricky patches, but I think our squad is built to survive it a bit better than it has in the past. And I think the manager's style of play probably does suit the Premier League a little bit more to maybe De Zerbi's, where, I'm still trying to learn Hurzeler's style a little bit, because I think often we do kind of not play around in that midfield so much. But I think that pragmatism and that directness does suit the Premier League, despite the fact we're a possession-based team. I think it's quite complicated and interesting, but it's going well for us so far. So looking forward, obviously we've got Crawley at home in the Carabao Cup at the Amex. I think, is it the second or first round of the Carabao Cup? It's a regional round, so you're only playing teams who are kind of in the southern half of the draw alongside us. So we've been given Crawley, which will be a fantastic game. I hope we're going to see the Amex kind of pretty full for that, because there's going to be a lot of fans who'll be interested in that. Fairly cheap tickets. I know it's on a school night and a weeknight, but I think it's one of those where you're going to be able to see second string players like Ayari playing, Rutter hopefully playing, Gruder playing as well. Hopefully Carl Rushworth will get some minutes in goal, and we'll see that change come a little bit. And I'm excited to see how we line up for that game and kind of the result we get. You'd think it's a game that we'll be able to kind of breeze through and maybe get a result, but you just never know, do you? So yeah, a brilliant result, building on our record against Man United, where we always seem to kind of somehow get wins against them, and particularly at home. Obviously we didn't get it in the last game at home, but the last few years, our home match against Man United have always pulled up absolutely unbelievable results, and this is just another one. Those full-time scenes at the Alex was so good. Loved it, and hopefully we can build on it with a brilliant away day in London at Arsenal next week, one where we got to go into it and feel confident, because we're looking good. We're looking really good at the moment. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. And in the meantime, if you've enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed the result, please drop a comment, give it a like, please subscribe to the channel. We upload every week after matches, and also midweek, talking on topics such as kind of new signings or more feature-based games. I think there's so much more to this channel than just kind of weekly analysis after matches. So I really want you to be involved in that and get involved as much as you can. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoy the Crawley game if you're going. Enjoy the Arsenal game if you're going to that as well. And as always, in the meantime, up the Albion.